And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Lost Sheep podcast. I am Nazaro Pengallo here with.
Cole Bissett.
Alrighty, and welcome back. This is episode number 92. First and foremost, I'm going to drop it in right here, right now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, follow us wherever you're at, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcast, or Apple Podcast is where you listen to podcasts on Apple. And don't forget about Instagram, TikTok, any of those things. Don't forget about the merch either. So plug right away to begin the episode. But as you can see, I am back. No Evan this week. A constantly flexible and fluid summer schedule that's going on here. However, I don't know if Evan said this in the last podcast, but we are counting down the days to when we will all three be reunited at his wedding day. I believe it's under 25 days now. So I could be wrong on that. It should be around that many days, but very, very exciting for him. So Cole, I know Evan's off doing a little traveling and he's getting ready for his wedding and everything like that. What are you up to, sir?
So, really, really quickly, if you guys didn't catch any of that, because from my end, it's really, really glitchy, I am just going to reintroduce us real quick. I'm Cole. This is Nazario here. You can probably hear me, but it's nice to be back in the saddle with Nazario. It's been a minute since we've recorded an episode together. And I'm excited. I'm excited to do it. But life's been really good for me, man. I've been busy watching the World Cup, working mostly, but trying to watch the World Cup, manage my time effectively. This week has been really cool. There's been a lot of little God moments scattered throughout for me. I told you about one yesterday. It's a really, really cool moment. Nazario and I have this Mexican bakery that we like absolutely adore. And we go after Sunday
Mostly for the
Mass.
prices.
Yes, for the prices, it is like legitimately incredible. So we'll go and just stock up after mass because it's like $5 and you get like 4 churros. It's like the greatest thing ever. And so I went after work at the end of the day yesterday, and this guy and I believe his wife. That's what he said. Um, he came out to me and he was like, "Hey, we really could use any extra money if you have any on you, um, for housing for tonight." And most of the time, I'm always a little weary of these situations because I don't want to finance like if it actually isn't true. I don't want to finance anything that's going to harm them. So I always normally if they ask, I'll see if I have any small bills in my wallet and we'll try to give them some of that. But I didn't actually have anything on me at the time. And it was the craziest thing in the world because I can't even take ownership of this because I feel like I was on autopilot for a second. But I was kind of observing myself outside of my body. And instinctively, I just asked him if I could pray with them really quickly, which is very out of character for me. I'm not that like I am very, very outspokenly, Christian, very outspokenly Catholic. I do this, but like it's very out of character for me to like do it like that. That's not normally my style, my way of going about it. And I caught myself off guard. I remember saying it, and I'm like, "Whoa, did I just do that?" And it's like, I guess I did. And so I um, just started praying with them, and it was incredible. It was just like a minute long prayer, but I was kind of just on autopilot, and God kind of took over. And the prayer ended. I said, "God bless you," and we walked away, and it was just a really, really cool experience. Seeing the rewards of what our spiritual pursuit on the podcast is yielding. Um, and it's not even me; it's God working through me, which is incredible because, like, I truly believe a lot of that wasn't even my own words. So, but yeah, it's been really good. How about yourself, dude?
Yeah,
You
no, been
I got a lot of info from you about VBS recently. Nazario apparently is now a dancer and what a singer for children from what I've been told.
okay. So, I was gonna get into that, Cole. But basically, one of my friends that I grew up with and that went to youth group with, let's talk about him first. Shout out, he should have been our shepherd. I just realized this. I'm shaving him for the shepherd. We're throwing that to the shepherd. I just thought of a new. Well, yeah, I'll just throw him to the shepherd. So one of my friends from youth group who will be shouted out as the shepherd basically needed me to come and be a song and dance leader for VBS. And if you know me, this doesn't make any sense to call in me to do song and dance. Very random. I was like, why in the world are they calling me to do this? I do podcasts. I can speak, public speaking, sure. But singing and dancing is, I've never done that in a public setting for any reason like this in my life. So this is very interesting. And then I go there, and this is not, I don't have to be spectacular or magnificent. You're literally just playing music like on a speaker, and you're teaching kids the dances for fun, and then you sing with them. So our 5 songs, if I can remember them, the first one they learned on Monday is "World on Fire" by For King and Country. Tuesday was "Washed by the." Oh, I don't remember who that one's by actually. And then we've
Washed by the
got,
water?
it was called "Washed," but like the chorus is "Washed by the Water." I don't remember who it's by though. And then Wednesday they learned "Praise," which I believe is by Elevation Worship. Um,
In Brandon Lake.
yeah. Thursday they learned "I Thank God," which is, who is that one, Michael?
I think that's Hillsong.
Mm. And then "Your Way's Better" will be tomorrow from Forrest Frank. And then, so teaching them some dances for that. And "Your Way's Better," we didn't teach them anything. They just did the TikTok dance. But tomorrow they're gonna be going out with to perform for their parents. So that'll be pretty cool. But it's been a lot of fun. I didn't really know what to expect going in. But I've thoroughly enjoyed it, just jamming out with them. Just being around the youth. They're so much fun. As we grow older and older, we will see how much, the youth that we interact with, and how much joy and just happiness and energy that they bring. So it was a lot of fun. Before that, though, I was on vacation. That's why I wasn't here for the last pod. Um, Went everywhere. Went to Charleston. Went down to Kingsland, Georgia. Went to Jacksonville. Went to Orlando. Went to Sarasota. So Cole, I have driven through the entirety of Florida this year. So spring break, we, as in me, Cole, and a bunch of our buddies, we drove from Tuscaloosa over to the east side, Cocoa Beach. So we drove through like the west, north side of Florida, all the way to the east side. We drove down to Fort Lauderdale, just fully down the east coast, basically to Miami, and then also to Orlando. And then I went with Robert and Nick Duke and Thomas Hughes all the way over to Tampa, which on the west side, and then drove back up to Tuscaloosa. Then a couple weeks later, I went to Destin, which is on the Panhandle side, to see my fiance and her family. And then this time went down the East Coast again, Jacksonville, Orlando, then all the way down the west side, Sarasota, all the way down to Ave Maria University. So deep in Southwest Florida. So I've driven the entire state this year. Pretty crazy. It's been a lot of fun. Saw a lot of different beautiful Catholic communities. One in Jacksonville, we went to a Sunday night mass. The first Sunday we were gone, that was a lot of fun. See all those people on Sunday night, and they did a Eucharistic procession after mass. And so I haven't seen that too many times. That was very cool. Everyone was talking about, we're not talking, sorry, worshiping the Lord in adoration after mass and staying a little longer. So that was really cool. And then this past Sunday, we went to one in Lakewood Ranch, Florida. It was a 7:30 a.m. mass, and it was packed, 1,000 people, fully filled. So that was super awesome. So two great experiences there. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, after our slight technical adjustment there, we're going to jump into our quote for this week.
Ladies and gentlemen, the quote of the week.
Oh, there we go. I'm going to switch the layout. I'm on your left on my screen. Actually, when I went back and looked the other week when we did it, you were right and I was wrong, by the way.
Eh,
So
well,
I'll
because
give
it's
you.
my recording,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
I will always be right.
Well, real quick, before I shout out the quote, there's one announcement that Nazario failed to mention. It's actually probably the biggest announcement of the year for him and probably of his life as far as big things go. And he hasn't mentioned it on the podcast yet. I'm kind of ashamed of him. I'm not going to lie. Something big just happened over in Kentucky for him. And I'd love for him to have the opportunity to share this with you guys.
Cole, how about you talk about the quote real quick? We'll bring it back when it's necessary. I got you. Just talk about the quote for a few minutes.
Okay. I'm just making sure that Nazario brought attention to this because I think he forgot that he hadn't mentioned it yet. But anyways, the quote for this week, for you lovely listeners out there, we're going to get a little psychological this week. We're going to get a little bit mind bending with this quote. The quote for this week is, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then and only then can I change."
Whoops.
Oh,
I didn't know if it was going to automatically
oh,
put
well,
itself
here we
in
go.
there,
There we
but it
go.
did.
Oh my goodness.
So, see, Cole, instead of using words, we need visuals. If you are on YouTube, you see what picture is presented here. If you're not on YouTube, I want you to stop, pause your podcast, go to YouTube, go to where you are in the episode, which should be around 10, 11 minutes. Pop right in, right here. You will see a wonderful picture. Oh, I think it's wonderful. Most people would say it's wonderful. Yours truly, down on one knee. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have proposed to my former girlfriend, now fiance, Miss Caitlin Payne. Thank you very much.
Yeah. See,
As you
I,
can
I,
see, we're going to shout out two things in this picture. One, you can't ask for a better reaction than right there, folks.
no, that's
So,
pretty great.
they, you want that great picture. That's the reaction you want right there. The hands on the face, just the wow moment. Second thing, look at that posture, man. You can't ask for better posture. I was told by Caitlin's sister to practice my posture on my kneel down. I mean, look at that. Executed to perfection.
You know, where I think that comes from your squat form. I think you've been hitting the gym recently, and so your stature is elite, honestly. I think that's what it comes from. But you
I
couldn't ask
appreciate
for a
that.
sexier man on his knees right there proposing to his lady. We love to see it. We love to hear it. They FaceTimed me like an hour after it happened. All of us were anxiously awaiting their glorious proposal. This has been in the works for a while. So we're very, very happy for the man. I know you seminarians and priests out there that I believe, not actually that watch this, but that are currently seeing it, are slowly watching your boy fall off the market. And I know it's
I will
tragic.
say they've got less than 13 months
Yep.
if they were
So
to pull off something crazy like that.
if you really want that
I don't
vocational
think
discernment out of
Cole,
him for the priesthood, this is your time. Hammer him now. Hit him
I would
hard.
say that Caitlyn is not like Nico Harrison. She will not trade away Luka Doncic in his prime.
I
So,
see. I see. Micah's got to stay at the Cowboys too, you know. But
that's just different. That's a different conversation, Cole.
well, anyways, back to our quote of the week. Thank you for sharing, Nazario. I'm glad it got brought up. I was a little bit intrigued by the fact that it hadn't got brought up yet because I think I was like, did he remember that he hasn't said this yet? So,
No, I
but
didn't
anyways,
remember that honestly, but I
there you
appreciate the
go. I
reminder.
got you. Anyways, the quote for this week is, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." And that's by Carl Rogers. Nazario, I have yapped here for a minute, so I'm going to let you kind of take the first spin on it. But go ahead, go for it. I'm going to bounce off you a lot this week. This is more psychological, so I think I'm going to ask questions and engage in conversation a little bit more rather than just long soliloquies.
Yeah. So when you look at this quote right off the bat, a couple things pop off. First, we expect Cole to define paradox. Guessing that's going to happen sometimes. I think that's very important for the rest of the quote. Secondly, is that Evan is the one that I first ever heard say the word and define the word paradox. So this is kind of unfortunate that he's not on here to define that right off the bat. But that's very much Evan's thing. Is he knows what paradoxes is. He likes talking about them, and I think that would be a good way to go. But next, I feel like to understand the quote as a whole, very much so, you have to break down and do them step by step. Of course, it says, and if this is an if then statement, so that makes sense. If one thing happens, then another thing can happen. So you have to start with the if, the first statement. Okay. When I accept myself just as I am. So putting away everything else of the quote, putting away the curious paradox, putting away then I can change, just going to initially focus on when I accept myself just as I am. So there's a variety of truths that come with accepting who you are. You have to know where you come from to know who you are. You have to know, who and what defines who you are. And you have to know where you're going to know who you are right now. So there's this variety of different truths and definitions to figure out who you are. And then next, once you figure out who you are, which is a process, then you got to figure out how to accept yourself as you are right now. So there is a lot of challenges in this quote, a lot of mental battles that we have to go through because there's just this is really a very challenging, like life changing, practical way that you view yourself, a way that you go about living. That's just how this quote is. It's gonna be fascinating to pick it apart. But that's where I go right away is when I accept myself just as I am. Before I can accept myself, I have to know who I am. How do I figure that out? How do I figure out who I am? And then how do I accept myself as I am? So those are the two main things I go right to right there is when I accept myself. How do I accept myself and who am I? That's what I would go to right away, Cole.
Yeah, I think funny enough, I wasn't actually prepared for the paradox definition. I actually didn't have a
It's
definition for this week.
funny enough, Cole, is I feel like every time that I see a word that I want to define, and I say that, I always go, "Yeah, Cole's probably gonna do this." It usually
It's
doesn't
never
happen that
happened.
way.
It has never
Yeah,
happened.
it usually happens when there's like a random word that for some reason you want to define. I don't know why this is, but yeah.
It's very funny. Our ways of thinking about the way we like interact with people is the same. Our way of interpretation of things is kind of where our differences lie. I think with some things is just like we think about things from a different angle a lot, and so that's what makes the podcast interesting. Is because we're kind of like, ooh, I think of it like this, and you're like, oh, I thought of it this way. What are you talking about? But yeah, I think it's definitely a good point though. It's something I want to stick on for a little bit here. But paradox, the definition of paradox is a statement, idea, or situation that seems absurd or self-contradictory at first glance. At first glance, yet it reveals an underlying truth or valid logical conclusion upon deeper inspection. So, in summary, in layman's terms, for keep it stupid simple. Wait, no, keep it simple, stupid. It's funny, that up. Sorry. Keep it simple, stupid. Right? Yes, keep
Yes,
it
you got it.
simple,
I
stupid.
think I've never heard this before,
Golly,
so
man. Yep. Keep it simple, stupid. You'll hear it all the time. No, you probably won't. But anyways, what it means in simple terms is it's something that looks wrong, but in the end, it actually is. It makes sense. Like it seems off. Like you're uncomfortable with it at first, but when you understand the context, it makes sense. So the paradox for this one, to go ahead and identify it, is that you have to stop to move forward. Isn't that kind of weird? That's kind of a weird paradox. I remember going to daily mass at 6 a.m. at Holy Spirit one time, and Father Deering goes, and he starts talking about the Cars movie, Cars, and he starts talking about Lightning McQueen
which one?
and numero uno, and he starts talking about Lightning
The
McQueen.
second best one.
Yes, the second best one. For those of you who don't know, Cars 2 is our favorite Cars movie. And for any of you who think otherwise, you are wrong. You're just
It's
wrong.
objectively the best.
It is objectively the best movie. Best composition, best everything. Mater is a spy. I mean, what else can you ask for? I mean, come on. But
Mater has a girlfriend. That's
and Mater's
also
got a
another thing.
girlfriend. He pulls. Mater pulls, man. I gotta respect the guy. The effort is out there. And the best part is he's himself. He's authentic. He loves his dents, man. He loves his dents.
That's a great point.
But he talks about Cars 1 and the famous scene where Doc starts to teach Lightning McQueen how to drive on a dirt road. And
Mm.
it's like the logical conclusion, the paradox is that you're going left, but to go left, you have to go right. Weird, right? You have to turn right to go left. How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense? When you actually understand the physics behind it and how it works on the loose road and the context of it, it makes sense. So for this is an example of that. You have to stop to go forward. You have to look at where you're at. Here's a real life situation. All right, you are driving down a road and there's a train coming. All right, you have to stop and let the train pass before you can go forward. If you try to go forward, you're gonna die. Reality situation, you're gonna die. That train's gonna hit your car, skadoosh. It's all over. Kung Fu Panda. And you're gonna blow up, and that's not good. Now, what they're talking about in this situation is more our how do we grow in relationship and faith and virtue and excellence, all of these different types of virtues. And the way to do that is to first you need to fully understand and tell the truth about your state of being and your state of self. That's most important. Oh, looky there. I love the visual, Nazaria. Oh, right. That makes perfect sense. Turn right to go left. Yes. Thank you.
If you've ever seen the movie, the next thing that happens is he attempts to do this and fails. So
yes, he does.
Eventually, he figures out how to do it right. But sorry, I just had to throw it in there.
No, you're good. You're good. He goes right into cactuses, but or cacti, plural.
Nice one.
Yeah, I got you. But yeah, you have to first be able to fully tell the truth about yourself, and it's not. For instance, if you want growth in your spiritual life, maybe there's something you're struggling with, maybe you're stagnant, whatever it is, you need to really understand where you're at. You don't have to label yourself as whatever it is. You don't have to label yourself as I'm a still Catholic who's like this, who's flatlined. That's me. That's my identity. Whoop-de-doo. No, you don't have to label yourself like that. You just have to be honest where you're at. I'm here and I want to be here. How do I get there? And that's the very first step that you take. Now, Nazario, what would you think would be step 2?
Phone a friend.
Phone a friend. Is the friend me? Am I the friend here?
Yeah, the friend is you.
Okay, so the friend is me. Then, after you understand and tell the truth about yourself to yourself, you have to be honest with yourself, your identity. You have to fully understand and believe in the mercy of God. We cannot be stuck in this period of hopelessness, right? When you are trying to move forward, you have to have unrelenting trust that when you're crossing the track, that pulley, that door opens, that there's not another train that's going to come. We have to trust God's mercy that there's not another trial right there. There's an opening right there for us to go through. And it's not as simple as that, right? Like there's many different train tracks. There's not one crossing and we're in heaven. Salvation does not happen instantaneously. It is a growing battle. It's a growing effort. But you have to then accept God's mercy. You have to trust that when you cross those tracks, you're going to make it out at the other end okay. And so those are the 2 steps to fully enter into change. Because if you don't accept that, you're always going to be standing there waiting for the train. Or the train's going to be right in front of you. And you're going to try to move forward, and you're going to run into a train. So it's going to look like, and then you're really messed up. Then you got to buy a new car. Then you got to fix yourself.
Or you
go to the hospital. Yeah, or you just die, and then you go to this place down under that we don't want to go to. But what'd you say?
I said it is a train.
Yes, it is a train. But does that make sense? Do you get where I'm coming at with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Did you have more to go, or were you?
No, I was on a rant for like 10 minutes there. So I'm letting you take a wheel for a little bit here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna throw back to you with a question here.
Go for it.
we accept ourselves as we are. We figure out who we are, try to accept it. So we do all that work, right? We figure out who we are. That takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of prayer. It takes a lot of research. Then we got to learn how to accept ourselves. It's a whole psychological research, whole mindset we got to go through. And then there's a second part of this quote, right? Like we have so much work at the beginning. Now we have a second part. Then I can change. So my question to you is, why? Why is there that second part? Why change? We've done all this stuff to accept ourselves and know who we are. And now I want to change it all up right after that. Why, Cole Bissett?
Work. That's my word. Work. Because we have to work for what we love. If we're in a relationship with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we don't need to be stagnant. I talked about this last week with Evan, is convenience is the biggest opposition of diligence. And if we do these things and then we just stop, we're like, okay, I've stopped. The train's not there. I don't really feel like going forward. I've accepted myself. I understand and trust God's mercy. I don't feel like going forward. Where's the improvement? Are you going to get to that final destination? No, you're just going to sit there and you're going to watch your ETA go later and later and later and later. And it's like, that sucks. You want to be there on time. You want to be there at the time that you should be. And so our faith requires work, which it's a strange concept to think about, but we have to be okay with the uncomfortable. We have to be okay with the pushing, because and then the other thing is with change, and I like that they use the word change, but I also think it should be different. I think from a Catholic perspective, that quote, if you wanted to make it, frame it a little more to Catholicism, I think the proper terminology for that would be, then I can enter into the start of conversion. And you think conversion, you're like, I'm already Catholic. Oh no, I can't convert. That's not what I'm talking about conversion in a different sense. It's conversion of the soul into heaven. You're having that change, that shift into reality, because change it implies something instantaneous. It implies, when we hear change, it's like, okay, this is happening now. I'm changing. That means something's happening to me at this moment. Whereas you talk about entering into the start of conversion, you are now on your journey towards heaven. And you can step back, you can step forward, but the important part is that you've started it. So once you've accepted yourself and faced the reality that God's mercy is endless, then you can move forward and you can truly start that conversion. Because without those realities opened up to us, we're going to have blinders and we're not going to be able to see what's in front of us. So it's like driving without lights, if that makes sense. You need both your left light and your right light to see forward.
Yeah.
But
And I think
what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, so one reason why I think this quote goes so well together, specifically together, not just accepting myself as I am or changing, why it goes so well together is when you learn who you are, then you learn how much change you really need, right? And this is talking about in terms of who we are if in truth, who we are, who God says that we are. And so the one thing is we were created to be perfect in the garden, like the original creation of human beings. Perfect. Like God's creation, perfect. That's who we were meant to be. And there's this quote, don't remember exactly where it's from. I believe Jesus says this in the gospel, but it could be for somebody else. It says, oh, yes, I think Jesus is talking about divorce being allowed in the time of Moses, and the Pharisees ask him about this. And Jesus says, in the beginning, it was not so. So in the beginning, we were created perfectly. It was not the way that it is now. Okay. And so I am how I am right now. But in the beginning, it was not so. So there is a version of myself, of all humanity, that is not the way it is now. It is not broken. It is not full of sin, and all that comes with that. There is a version of it that is beautiful, perfect, ordered towards God perfectly, ordered towards God or towards each other perfectly, ordered towards ourselves perfectly in that love. That version of ourselves is what we're striving for. That's why we need to change. So that's what I would say about that part. But I want to go all along with also accepting ourselves. So if the truth is that the way we are right now is not the way it was, not the way it should be, then why should we accept ourselves as that we are? That is kind of this question I want to talk through here. Because if all those things that I said before are true, why should we accept ourselves now? Um, and what I would say in response to that is accepting yourself does not have anything to do with the future striving or the present intentions of your actions. As we talked about in our separate conversation, Cole, I'm going back to the what do we say? It was the contentment versus what was the other word? The contentment versus
Complacency.
the complacency. This is exactly where that conversation comes in. Accepting yourself is about contentment. And I don't know what would be the other word that would go along with complacency. I would say maybe just like an over arrogance or a pride in yourself would lead more towards complacency. acceptance is supposed to be about contentment and that being
Hmm.
okay in the moment. And one, knowing like, hey, my salvation isn't at hand. Like you're not constantly worried about, oh, I'm going to hell. Like I'm always condemned because that's not the truth, right? If we're talking about accepting yourself as you are, if you're in a state of grace, then you can accept yourself as you are because you are in that state of grace right now. You are content. You are, because of the love and mercy of Jesus, of God, you are going to go to heaven. So that was a little bit of a long-winded answer. Cole, do we think we brought all the points together in that? Are there any holes, any loopholes that we need to, tie off right there? What do you think?
Real quick, I would be so against I would be absolutely mad at myself if I didn't reference Need to Breathe at some point again. It's been a long time, right? I mean, golly, how many episodes before Cole has
I
brought in
don't, yeah,
Need
I
to Breathe
don't
into this
know. The
conversation?
answer to that is we should
Yeah,
have a need to breathe tracker. Honestly, that'd be kind of
yeah,
fun.
we should. We could have a tally mark and it'll appear on our screen every time. But here's here's a Need to Breathe song for you guys to listen to. And I think it's very thematic for this week. It's called Who Am I? Um, and the song is all about telling the truth about yourself. It's accepting yourself where you're at. It's about the question, who am I to be loved by you? It's your identity.
Mhm.
What is it? The simple answer and the straightforward answer, this is the first part of your identity that you should, this is step one, and the ladder as far as importance, this is the peak. Because there's different levels of identity. This is the identity that you carry with you forever. This is your life. You're a son and daughter of Christ. Anytime that goes into question, I want you to sit down. If you are fearing the Lord so much to an extent where you are hopeless, right? We should fear the Lord. That's a virtue. But if you're allowing it to consume you and allow it to turn into a lack of trust and hopelessness, I want you to sit down and I want you to pray that prayer. Who am I to be loved by you? Ask that question. And until you get that answer again, and until you believe that answer again, I don't want you to stop praying. You should stop. You should pray that prayer every time. That is your prayer in a time of sorrow, in a time of desolation. Because in times when we're at our peak, we should be preparing ourselves for those periods of desolation and arming ourselves with questions like this. This is how I'm going to do it if the next time it happens. Because our faith life is an up and down motion linearly. We're going up, but it's up and down. Like we stagger, we move forward. It's okay. Naturally, there are ebbs and flows. Sometimes we just feel more distant. That's okay. So just remember that. Who am I to be loved by you? And answer that to yourself truthfully. Answer, and you should believe that for us, we are both sons of Christ, and we need to be firm in that. And then there are different levels of that identity as you go along afterwards, brother, sister, mother, whatever it is. And then don't let your sin become an identity, but let it be something that you acknowledge. Okay? I struggled with this. I'm acknowledging it. It's all I'm giving it. I'm not giving it the level of an identity. I'm giving it the level of recognition, and that's all. I'm going to move on with it. I'm going to move forward. If you focus on your identity up top, that's really going to help that bottom make sense. But yeah, that's my little add-on there. But other than that, I think we've hit all the points that really can be hit on this. This is a lot of fun. I knew when I sent this quote that I was like, Nazar and I are going to have a good time with this one because it's kind of right up our alley. And we've had this contentment, complacency debate for a long time. And I humbly admitted to him after last episode that I believed him and that I have a misunderstanding of the word complacency. So I
No,
now understand
contentment.
it.
You had a
Contentment. Yes,
contentment.
that's it. Yes. And so now I have a better understanding. So Nazario, thank you for teaching me that. Humbly uh, gratuitous towards you, not gratuitous, grateful for you and your words. But yeah, with that being said,
It's all thanks to God was working through me to help you
yeah,
with that, Cole.
heck yeah, Robert would say that too. Shout out Robert Sellers.
Shout out Robert.
Um, but anyways, with that
And
being
we're
said,
gonna move on. Oh, you got it. You got it.
You sure? You were really excited. I could see it in your face. You want
No,
that.
no. I was about to go to the Shepherd of the week, and I realized I was
Okay.
wrong. So I was gonna let you
Okay.
do it because
Well,
we're
then
on to the
I'll
PPP.
Jesus take the wheel. With that being said, we are going to move on to our practical prayer practice of the week.
Prayer practice of the week.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, one, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little I thought when you said you were gonna do it, Cole, that you were gonna press the button, and then he didn't press the button. So, folks, this is the Lost Sheep podcast. Okay, you never know what you're gonna get here. Um, but thank y'all for tuning in. We have
The
a
funny
wonderful. What's up?
I was gonna say the funniest part about all of this for you guys is you really are gonna get the authentic version of us because we don't edit a ton for purposeful reasons of kind of just letting you guys see what happens. If you watched last episode, the whole transitions fell apart. I didn't know what I was doing because it's been so long and Nazaria's been doing them. So you're gonna continue to see that anytime we mess up because we want to show you guys that authenticity. But go for it.
Yeah. So our practical prayer practice is pretty special. Usually, you guys know that we like to do, if there's any holidays, any special days around our podcast recording time, that we try to make it extra special in that type of way and push you guys towards a certain prayer challenge that has to do with that. And so this week, this will be released. This episode will be released. Let's see if I can do math here. June 21st, which is, if you guys didn't know, Father's Day. So if you're listening to this on Father's Day, any later date, this is being released on Father's Day. So this practical prayer practice has to do with that, with Father's Day. And so we want you guys, we will do this ourselves, to pray for our fathers. And Cole, I challenge you and myself to do this leading up to and through Father's Day. So we're going to start right now. You guys won't listen to this till Sunday. So don't do this just one day. Try to make a little bit of a trend on this and pray for your father. How can you do this? Of course, you can simply pray a rosary. You can just offer up whatever intercession prayers, sacrifices that you have for your father that you feel like the Holy Spirit is inviting you to. And then also specific one that you can do is a litany to Saint Joseph. Just look up litany to Saint Joseph. Plenty of Catholic resources will have that on there. Why specifically do I say that? Well, Saint Joseph is the adopted earthly father of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He led the Holy Family during his time. He taught Jesus so much as a human being. I know Jesus was God. He is God, of course, but he still learned things from his father, even though he ended up obviously being greater than his earthly father. But he still was led by his father, Saint Joseph. And Saint Joseph continues to pray for us, especially us men, especially for fathers. So pray to Saint Joseph to intercede for your father. And if you're sitting here and you're like, well, my father hasn't been in my life, or whatever type of trauma that or events that have gone on with your father in your life, or maybe he's not here on this earth anymore, that's an even greater way to pray for him. I know it's challenging. I know it's difficult, especially if your father has caused you pain and heartache. But sacrifice creates great prayer. To be able to pray through that sacrifice for him is incredibly great. So yeah, our practical prayer practice. Pray for your fathers. Cole, do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah. We also have a heavenly Father, and He created us. So, just a special reminder: we have a wonderful prayer called the Our Father. Actually,
Mm,
so that's pretty easy. That's a pretty easy one. So thank God first. Thank God first. Because without Him, our Father, our grandfather, we wouldn't be here. So make sure to pray for God, pray for your father, pray for your great grandfather. Remember, they are fathers too. So any fathers, just offer it up to them. Shout out dads, shout out my dad, shout out your dad. They have supported us in more ways than y'all know. So thank you, dads. But with that being said, we're going to
absolutely.
transition to our Shepherd of the Week.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Shepherd of the Week.
Alrighty, folks. We're gonna move on to our shepherd of the week. And originally, I had this planned, but I talked about it in the intro to the episode. But I figured out a good secondary switch right here that I think might be a little better. But our shepherd of the week, Cole, does not know this human being. It is a friend of mine that I've known, I believe, since middle school. His name is Dexter Bent. I will send him this episode. I don't know if he's ever listened to the pod. I will have to see. But our shepherd of the week is Dexter Bent. You might be wondering who in the world this is. Well, as I talked about in the intro, I'm doing this VBS song and dance thing, and I got invited into it by a friend. This friend, Dexter Bent, he's been doing this for 6 years, he said, with my buddy Christopher Young. Christopher Young will also be playing music at my wedding, so shout out Chris Young. But Chris can't do it this year because he's doing a summer music missionary work, and Dexter had been doing it for a couple of days. But today, fellas, whoever you are, he left on a mission trip to Colombia for a week. So shout out him for one, going on mission, two, for ministering to these children at VBS through music, and third, for inviting me into that. And then fourthly, I'm just going on and on about him, just for the great inspiration, encouragement, and role model that he's been for myself, for my younger brothers. I know my younger brothers look up to him quite a bit. If you're watching this, Dexter, shout out you, brother. And so I know he's blessed me in a lot of ways and blessing a lot of other people. So if y'all are listening to this, shout out Shepherd Dexter of the Week, or shout out of Shepherd of the Week, Dexter Bent. Added that all together. But say a prayer for Dexter for his mission trip over in Colombia, all the people that are there with him. So our nice Shepherd of the Week, Cole, I'm going to throw it over to you for some final thoughts before we get on out of here.
I thought for a quick second you were going to ask me to say some things about Dexter, and I was going to be like, guys, I've never met Dexter. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. He sounds phenomenal. Never got the wonderful chance to meet him, but I'm sure I will meet him at some point in my life. But anyways, just a friendly reminder with this quote. Again, affirm yourself in your identity first. Trust God next. That's how, if you can't affirm yourself, you can't bring yourself to trust God. And then with those tools, with those weapons that you have been armed with, move forward. So take some time to be present. What is it from Kung Fu Panda? The gift of that's what does he say? Oh my gosh. Kung Fu, hold up, I'm looking this up. Kung Fu Panda present quote. Y'all are gonna love this. Shout out Kung Fu Panda. Baller movie. Not sponsored, but I don't care because it's Kung Fu Panda.
Robert will love this one.
Oh, he will. He will adore it. Oh my gosh, I don't have good Wi-Fi. No. Okay, hold up. Kung Fu Panda quote about the present.
Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it's called the present.
Yes. So if tomorrow's a mystery and we're in our present and it's a gift, then we need to be present in the present. We need to be there. We need to allow ourselves to be armed. I remember that at one point, Nazario was in a period, and you may remember this period because I made fun of him a lot for it. It was his hippie phase where he was like, present in the moment. I'm here. I am so present in the moment. I'm not going to get worked up because I'm here. And I mean, we'd be playing disc golf, and he'd have a bad throw, and it'd be just like, you know what? That's okay. I'm present today. I'm here. And golly, there were some times where I was like, man, this happy-go-lucky guy right now. I'm like, can he just be pissed? Like, please let him be pissed about something. Like, let him be mad. And it used to drive me up a creek sometimes. And no, it didn't. He never broke character. So kudos to him. But the important part is it allowed for a lot of development. And Nazario has talked plenty of times. I know I'm speaking for you, but he's talked plenty of times about the amount of growth that his honors college had on him as far as like learning and just really psychological development goes, because it kind of pushes you in a different type of academic learning. And that was kind of the big first step. So shout out, what do you call it? You used to call it something. Mindfulness. Oh, there it is. The way of mindfulness. Shout out the way of mindfulness. That's first. Being mindful means being aware. So be aware, be accepting of who you are. But anyways, I'm done yapping. Take the microphone from me, or I won't shut up.
Well, Cole already made, my point for me about what I would say. So shout out Cole. But ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Lost Sheep podcast. This has been episode number 92, just 8 away from the triple digits. We'll be continuing, hopefully going for the quattro digits at one point in our lives. According to my calculations, that would be maybe like 15 years, something like that. But hey, everyone can dream, right? You never know what can happen in life. But we thank you all for tuning in episode number 92. Hopefully you will be along with us throughout that whole entire journey. We hope this episode has touched you in some way, and whatever way the Holy Spirit is calling you and just shouting you out. But don't forget to check out the merch that'll be in that's on the that's on the Instagram in that bio. T-shirts, wristbands, all that good stuff. But hope you all have a great Father's Day. If you're watching on Father's Day, post Father's Day, don't forget to pray for your dads. Talk to them, tell them you love them. Even though guys don't really do that or like to do that, tell them you love them. They'll love it. So thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Lost Sheep Podcast. That's Cole Bissett. I'm Nazara Pangallo. We'll see you next week. God bless.